Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 34 of Friday Book Bites. And I am thrilled today to be joined by debut author and actor Susannah Hardy. Hi Susannah, thank you for joining me today. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Now, fair warning to anyone who is tuning in today, Susannah has some builders in the house. I'm about to be hit by a massive thunderstorm. So if anything goes wrong today, we're blaming that.
Yes, just have to be patient.
Oh dear. So we are here today to talk to Susannah about flawed characters, and we'll get onto that in just a moment. Before we do, though, I'm going to pop up the giveaway, as I always do at the beginning of the sessions. So we will have a giveaway of Susannah's beautiful debut novel, Loving Lizzie March. There it is there. And if you saw my introduction on Facebook yesterday, you'll know that I had quite a few snort out loud
I was glad to hear that.
Doing this. And I was very thankful actually that I was in lockdown, that I still am in lockdown, and I wasn't in public letting those snorts out into the world. So that was a blessing. For anyone who asks a question or leaves a comment either today during the live stream, or if you're watching this back later, you will still be in the draw up until about midday tomorrow to win a copy of Susannah's book. We have Jodie here already joining us. Hi, Jodie. Nice to see you.
Hi, Jodie.
Nola Marie is here all the way from Western Australia. And Tracy is here. And poor Karen, I'm so sorry, Karen, from Melbourne, because, yes, it has escaped Sydney. And we've infected the whole country. So we're very sorry that you're in lockdown now too, Karen.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dear. But we're not going to talk about that today because we're going to talk about happy things.
Yes.
Now, Loving Lizzie March, we'll get to Lizzie herself in a moment, but we're going to talk about flawed characters. And I wanted to ask you, just generally speaking, Susannah, why do you think it's important that as authors we include flawed characters in our novels?
Well, I think it makes it more interesting and realistic, and you need to have a bit of growth. You need characters to develop and grow. So there's nothing interesting or funny about perfect characters. It's sort of there's nowhere to go. So I think it, especially with comedy, it gives you things that are funny, but also just a more interesting and more realistic because no one's perfect in life. So I think it's important. The thing is, though, making them lovable as well. That's the challenge.
Yeah, I'm going to touch on that in just a moment. And I think you're right. As you said, none of us are perfect, and it makes it more relatable.
Yes,
when characters are flawed. Now,
Lizzie that was one thing I thought about too. Is that if they're flawed, then as the reader might go. Oh, it's pouring now. The reader might think, oh, there's things I can relate to, but if they are even that much more flawed, then they're a little bit removed as well. So they're like, I can relate to them, but oh God, thank God I'm not quite like Lizzie. I'm not that flawed, but there are things they can hook into.
We've got Neen joining us from Brisbane, and also Tanya Farrelly is joining us as
Tanya,
well.
hello.
Guys. Now, I'm so glad you said, oh, thank God I'm not like Lizzie, because let's talk about Lizzie a little bit. Lizzie is a deeply flawed character.
I know.
I mean, there were times where I really wanted to strangle her. And
there's been a lot of comments like that. Like, you just want to slap her because she's just so annoying and ridiculous sometimes.
Part of that is because of the character that you've created. Part of that is also because I probably saw a lot of my sister in Lizzie, and it's safe to talk about that. My sister doesn't watch these episodes, so we can speak freely. I found a lot of her in Lizzie, and I was just like, oh my God, woman. Probably because I've lived it a little bit like Clem, who's the supporting character.
Yeah.
So Lizzie's got a lot going on in her life. She's not incredibly successful from a personal point of view in terms of finding love, and professionally things aren't going particularly well for her either. And she kind of has this very annoying trait of, you know, the minute she meets a guy, she thinks they're destined to fall in love and get married. And it's, you know, she's on a bit of a journey to kind of break out of that. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. And it sort of takes a big change to sort of get her out of the bad habits. Yeah, I think it's kind of, that's her journey.
And but while I did want to strangle her quite a few times throughout the novel, I did still like her. And I think this is something that you've done really, really well. And I don't know if it was the humour or what it was about her in particular, but I did want to stay with her on the journey and find out how things ended up for her, because I did actually like spending time with her. How did you find that balance of making her flawed but also still likable?
Yeah, well, the flawed bit came very easily because she did come from a character that I developed as a performer that was much bigger and more outrageous. But there was a journey to make her, when putting her into a book, it was not that character, it became Lizzie. It did take a lot of, I had to look at a lot of things along the way and tone things down. I think definitely the humour really helps, and I love to push things to as far as I can and get away with it, like the things that she does and the things that she thinks, and standing on wheelie bins or whatever it is. And I think also there are characters that she meets along the way who like her. She meets the taxi driver, she meets certain people along the way who go with her as well, and she's I think also seeing the relationship with her parents, perhaps you see bits of her past that make her quite relatable as well. You see why she's come to this point. She has a long-term that, her friendship with Clem has lasted years. So there's obviously something about her to love, perhaps. But, yeah, so I think a combination of things has probably helped. Would you say? Oh, I've lost you.
Yeah, I think that's a really Sharia Moore.
Oh, yes.
Are you there, Susannah? Have we lost you?
Yeah, sorry, I lost you for a bit there, but no, you're back. Yep, got you back.
Okay. Yeah, it's a really interesting point you made about Clem, her best friend, and the taxi driver, Cherie, who are both wonderful characters in their own right. And the fact that they enjoy Lizzie's company means that there must be something there. And I think that we can find that. And you mentioned the wheelie bin, which we can talk about because that's at the very beginning. So
it's not giving anything away.
She's on a wheelie bin, peering of a guy she's basically had a one-night stand with, and she's basically stalking him. So that gives you an insight into the type of character that Lizzie is.
Sort of a torpedo approach to relationships.
To everything, really, isn't she, though?
Yes. Takes on life, with force.
Yeah, she's a kind of all or nothing kind of person. Even when Clem goes through some issues and she tries to sort of defend Clem in certain circumstances, she goes in all guns blazing without thinking, without having all of the facts, and she kind of messes things up as she does that.
Yeah, she's sort of a bit of a leap before she thinks type person, yeah.
She is. I'm just going to look at a few of these comments. Chrissy has said it's a fun book to be reading at the moment. It really is a bit of levity in these strange times that we're going through. Jodie agrees. She's just started reading it, and we do need some fun now. And this is I didn't think of this, Nola. That's a really interesting point. It's lovely to read about a character that says things that you sometimes think but you don't say out loud.
Yeah. I think that's where a lot of the comedy that I like is when you goes that extra, that extra step that you don't say but would love to sometimes.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that at all. Now, when we're talking about flawed characters, there's a trend that I've noticed in fiction lately where flawed equals awful. The characters are so flawed that there's no redeeming qualities about them at all. And I've noticed that a lot lately. And
and on television too, in Netflix shows and things.
Yeah, and I think that's the other end. If they're too perfect, we can't relate to them. But if they're too flawed, we also can't relate to them.
We don't like them.
No, and as readers, we need something to hang on to. We need to go on the journey with Lizzie. We can't just go, oh, we don't like her, that's it, I'm finished.
Yeah. No, exactly. No. And she does run a very thin line.
Congratulations. Yeah, she really does. Tracy Anderson has said we've all had moments like that. I'm not sure which moments Tracy is referring to. I don't know whether Tracy has stood on a wheelie bin stalking a boyfriend.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is, I kind of agree, Tracy. There's there are little bits and pieces all through it that you go, I have done something a bit like that, or I felt like that, or I've got myself into that situation. We might all not react as Lizzie does, but a lot of it has come from the world around me and people I've known, and people who know me will read this book and go, in fact, they feel like they've just had a couple of days sitting chatting to me because it does sort of come from real things, a lot of it.
It was absolutely relatable. As I said, there was a lot of my sister in Lizzie, and I'm probably a little bit more like Clem, so it was definitely relatable for me. This is an interesting comment that Jodie has left, that characters should be flawed but redeemable, and I think that's the key, isn't it? That redemption.
Yeah, and they show some sort of vulnerability at some point, or self-awareness. They become more self-aware of their flaws. Have we lost you again there?
I think this storm might be interfering.
Yeah,
a little
it keeps
bit.
coming in and out for me.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna hang on. Just wait there one sec, Maggie, can you just pull the box out a little bit?
Okay.
The white.
We're going to bear with this. I apologize. Okay.
Yep.
That's it. The
Can you
storm
hear
is
me?
partly interfering here. I can hear you perfectly.
Okay. Yeah. You're just, for me, coming in and out a bit, but that's might be me. I'm not sure.
Me.
Yeah. I can hear you now. Yep.
All right. As I said, it could be the storm. It's got very, very, very dark outside my window. So we'll see how we go. Now, you mentioned peace, and something you and I have spoken about is taking her from that almost a caricature in the performance to a real character that we can relate to. How did you do that, transferring her from stage to page?
Sorry. You're right. You just went right out then, but now you're back.
Okay. Okay. How did you transfer Lizzie from stage to page?
Well, because I worked in a comedy trio with two other actresses, two friends of mine, and we developed these three characters and performed them. There were three friends, very distinct characters. Mine was very much the sort of a bit busy, but more over top, and just a bit of a sort of man-eater. Like, she just sort of went for what she wanted. And we did some stuff on radio. We did a theatre show, full-length show at a space in Sydney, and we did some sketches for Foxtel on telly as well. And then I decided, we were doing the project, and I decided to keep going with character and did some more work. I performed her on her own. I started sort of working up a bit of a theatre show. Actually, I thought I'd put her into a book. And I think it was more about filling out the rest of her life, her family, history, relationships. She had to be that was, you know, a bit of a sketch comedy character. It sort of needed more depth. She needed a past, and she needed more emotions to it. So that was kind of where the work had to go to make her a little bit more, because she was a bit over the top. Gosh, there's... Hear me, Cindy? I'm just going to go over here.
Yeah, she still is over the top, but as we've said, I can hear you, yes.
Yeah,
I think
I'm
going
just
to put the questions
moving
into the comments. I've just had some lightning. So
thank you, darling.
I'll just give Susannah a minute to move.
Yeah, I've just moved spots,
okay.
But I don't know if it's my internet.
Can you hear me, Susannah?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me, Susannah?
Yes, I can hear you.
No, I think it's me. There's lightning. There's lightning now, and it's right over my head. So I think it might be me that's having on screen, so that if you can't hear me, internet. All right, guys, if anyone can hear me, I'm going to end the broadcast now. I will talk to Susannah about maybe having her back on another time. Can you actually hear me, Tanya? Okay. I'm just going to ask, can anyone hear me? Because it looks like I've lost my internet connection.
I can hear you.
You can? Okay. Yep. It might have just dropped out then. I was just saying there was a lot of lightning just then, so I think that might have interfered. Sorry about this for everybody listening. We're going to soldier on, though, because that's what we do in these tough times, right? Before we went live, Susannah and I were chatting and with Susannah's acting background, you know, there are some things you never do. Never work with animals and children, and never do live.
I've done all of
that. Yeah. And clearly Mother Nature's not on our side today. Anyway, while we're actually connected and we've got a moment here, I'll ask you another question. You narrated the audio book for this, and I actually listened to the audio.
Oh, did you? How did it sound?
I did, yeah. I really enjoyed it, and it was really interesting to hear the author's voice come through as opposed to, you know, a random stranger. So I was wondering, what was it like for you as the author to narrate your own book?
Yeah, well, I've kind of thought if anyone's going to do it, it has to be me, because I know the character so well and had performed her. So I really was looking forward to that. It's a long process. You know, it took it 3 days, and it can sometimes take longer than that too. But it did fall quite naturally for me. There were moments when I had written something that I thought was terribly funny and clever, but it was actually a bit of a tongue twister to say. So I was like, oh my God, who wrote this? So there were those moments. And after a few days, you kind of think, oh, this sounds boring. Like, oh, you know, I'm a bit sick of my own voice. But it was great. I really enjoyed doing it. And as I say, the character is one that I know how things should sound. So yeah, I felt like I should be the one to do it, which was, yeah, they just asked me to do it. So it was good. Yeah.
Have you listened back to it yourself? You know, like when you hear yourself on a tape recorder, showing my age there, and you ask, oh, no, is that what I sound like? Was that the same for you?
Yeah, it's a bit like that. I've only listened to a little grab. I think there's on the Pam McMillan website, you can listen to it a little bit. And I went, oh, I might listen to it a little bit. And then, yeah, so it is that feeling of like, oh, that's my voice. But I am used to seeing myself and hearing myself, you know, on telly and things like that. So it's not too much of a shock, but it's probably not something I want to sit down and listen to, you know.
for 8 hours long.
No.
Now, you mentioned just then that, you know, when you were reading it, when you were narrating it for the audiobook, you'd come across a passage that you thought was hilarious, and then you realised it was just a bit of a tongue twister. Comedy is a really personal thing, I find. When you were writing this, did you know that you were hitting the notes with the comedy aspect, or were you just going in blind, hoping that you were?
I think I think it's more I'm hoping, but it's things that make me laugh. So you just hope that other people see the world you do sometimes. You know, I can sense when there needs to be something funny in a line, and as I say, I like to push things into a bit further than you would think, or in a different direction, just to mix it up a bit. But it's mostly just thinking, well, I mean, I would often read it going, God, I think this is funny, but, you know, no one else seems to at the moment. But so I guess it's just, you know, you're waiting for other people to agree on what you think's funny.
So did you have a team of beta readers that you tested the material on, or?
When I finished my sort of first or second draft, I had another writer, Lisa Heidke, who's was a teacher and a writer, author, lovely writer. She worked as my mentor. I had it professionally edited, and then at the end of 2019, I signed with a literary agent, and they did a little bit more work on it. I did have a few beta readers just reading like the first 3 chapters along the way. So just, you know, people I knew, who I trusted, who, you know, would give me some good feedback. And so that was really helpful. But it's more the editing process that's been most beneficial to me. And then, of course, once I got the book deal, there was, you know, it's been endless amounts of edits and things as well. So, yeah.
Now, something that you have mentioned to me in a writing group that we're both part of is that you didn't know at the time you were writing a romantic comedy. What did you think you were writing?
I thought it was just women's contemporary fiction. I didn't realise it was literally when I started pitching it, that I went, oh, right, okay, it's funny. I mean, a lot of women's contemporary fiction has written with humour anyway. There's a lot of, you know, mostly they are quite funny, and but it goes a little bit further than that. It is really a rom-com, which I love. That's kind of my favourite genre in film and books. So not surprising, but yeah, I didn't think it was that funny, really.
It's probably a good thing that you didn't think it was funny, because when we find ourselves the funniest, other people don't tend to, right?
No, very true, very true.
You know, I crack myself up all the time and nobody thinks I'm funny, so.
Yeah.
Now, I just checking in, just because of the technical issues that we've had, I haven't seen any new comments or questions come through yet. So if somebody can just type something in, even just like, yes, we're still here, that would be fantastic. Let's talk about some of the supporting cast of characters. Now, we've got Clem, who's a bit more straight-laced than Lizzie, and our excellent Chrissy is saying they're here. Fantastic. Thank you, Chrissy. And Tanya is also here. Oh, good. I just, when things go wrong technically, I get very, very stressed.
Yeah, me too. No, it's perfect now. Well, for the moment, just knock on wood.
Okay. Tanya says she cracks herself up a lot as well.
That's good.
That's kind of funny, really.
Yeah. Well, you got to laugh. I mean, you know.
Especially at the moment. Sorry, well, I've digressed there. We were talking about Clem, and she's straight-laced. She's a lawyer. She's kind of the foil to Lizzie's antics. And the other character that I really fell in love with was Cherie. And she's not on the page a lot of the book. She's a taxi driver that Lizzie befriends. I think she's got an awful lot of stories to tell us. Have you ever thought of like branching out from the characters within the story and maybe giving Cherie her own story or any of the others?
No, I haven't, but it's a good idea. I would like to write I'd like to write the next book, and I was thinking that could follow up on a few of those storylines that could come into it. But no, I hadn't thought about Cherie on her own. She was never even meant to be there. Literally, that scene I was writing, Lizzie gets into a taxi, and that was kind of full stop. but as I was
Yeah.
writing, it suddenly became this very, you know, this certain taxi and the certain character, and then that character has become so important in the whole thing. Actually, I don't really plan very much. That's probably why that happened.
No, and I love it when that happens. I've had that happen a number of times to me, and I'm not a planner either. Somebody you think is going to be there for like a sentence ends up being a really important character. There's a lot of depth to Cherie that I'd love to see. So that's really, really good. Now, you just mentioned, you know, next. So are you thinking like a sequel to Lizzie? So we see what happens to her.
I haven't started. I have written my next, just almost finished my next manuscript, which is nothing to do with Lizzie. Completely different. It's it's still a comedy, probably. I'm not sure. That's why, again, I think maybe it's funny. I'm not sure, but it's a enemies to lovers sort of romance about an actress, so a bit closer to home this time. And but I always wrote Lizzie thinking if you get to the end, I wrote it with another book in mind. But never went on to write it because I didn't know if this one was going to be of any interest, or so I left it at that. But I do still want to write the next book, sort of, a follow-up, I guess.
Excellent. And this other story that you're currently writing, are we going to see that in another 12 months or so? Or?
I'm not sure. I've only got a 1-book deal with Lizzie, so I'm not sure if anyone's going to like it or not. Maybe.
Oh, I think plenty of people will like Lizzie. As I said, you know, despite the fact that I did want to, you know, murder her, I did really like her as well. And it is a really good feel-good story, which, you know, we can't get enough of at the moment.
No, it seems to be the time for that sort of, because, you know, rom-coms weren't that popular for publishers a few years ago. They were a hard sell in Australia, at least. And that's what people told me when I realised I'd written a rom-com, and but it seems to have changed now.
I think that's a really important lesson for any writers who might be watching this, is don't be swayed by people telling you that won't sell, that's not on trend. Write what's in your heart. Because I had the same thing when I was pitching my novels. One of the rejections that I got back about, a month before I signed my contract for a different person was women's fiction's a really hard sell right now.
Yeah, right.
You know, and I've got my 4th book coming out this year and another 2 in the works. And it just, you have to write what's inside you, regardless of what they tell you should be doing.
Yeah. I know there were days when I was just going, oh, God, why don't I write rural romance? I wish I did, but I just don't.
I often think I should be writing crime, except I don't read crime, so that's never going to work. I'm just going to go through a couple of the comments that we've got here. Jo Burke is a kindred spirit. She's laughing that we crack ourselves up too. I guess she does as well.
Very good.
At least somebody's laughing then, right? And Tracy Anderson loves an enemies to lovers story.
Me too.
So you've already got a reader for your next book.
Yeah, I love them. Yeah.
Jodie is cheering you on, certain that you will get another contract. Rom-coms are very popular at the moment. And I think, again, you know, in times that we're going through for the last sort of 18 months, we want to escape into a happy place. And I love a good rom-com. It's my favourite genre of movie. And Karen is saying that, you know, the publishers who say rom-coms won't sell should come and look at her bookcase. So,
mine too.
Yeah. I mean, all of this behind me, that's all women's fiction and romance and all the good stuff. All the good stuff that keeps life turning. Now, I'm going to pop up the details of where you can find Susannah online. If I can get my technical sorted out. Her website, her Facebook, her Instagram, and her Twitter. I'm going to ask you a question, which I don't know if it's a tricky question or not. I think it might be. You are an actor. You are now also an author. which medium do you prefer?
Interesting question. I can't say that I prefer one over the other, but I do, because I started freelance writing about 15 years ago, because I sort of thought I need something else. I need a bit more financial security. And for some reason I thought freelance writing and being an author would be the way to go. Little did I realise.
Oh, Susannah.
But the thing I do love about writing, whether it's, whether I'm writing feature articles, content, copywriting, or being an author writing a book, is that I can get up on a Monday morning and I can actually do it. I can write and perhaps get a job that day. You can create work a lot more effectively, whereas you can't always get up on a Monday and act, without a whole lot of other things being in place. So being a worker and a doer, someone who likes to get on and do things, I find that frustrating about being an actor, that you're at the whim of so many other decisions and projects and auditions and all sorts of things. In saying that, there's days when I'm writing and I go off and do a casting, and it's a nice change as well, and I might do an ad. I'm on a Nurofen ad at the moment, so that was fun to go out and do. So it works well with the both, but I think probably, long term seems to be writing's the thing that's keeping me going now, especially as I'm getting older, and in terms of being an actor and a mum. I've got young kids, so it's just been the thing that's got me through, really. And I love it. I do love writing as much as acting. It's the only other thing I've ever done that I've loved as much as acting.
I'm going to ask you one more question before we go, and there's another question in the comments that I can see. So this is your last chance for anyone watching to ask a question, because we're going to start wrapping it up. What has being an actor taught you about the art of storytelling through a novel?
About being an actor, I think it's probably the use of dialogue. That's where I focus. I always start with dialogue. I'll start a scene with dialogue, and then I have to sort of fill in around it, because that's what I love to do the most, and that's where I can hear the story. So I think that sort of element of being a performer, I can put that on the page because I can hear it, and if I speak it out loud. I think things like when you're creating, because I've created a lot of work as an actor of my own work, like The Girls, that group I was telling you about, and I was one of two Carmen Mirandas on rollerblades, Tutti and Fruity, for a long time doing corporate I was Fruity, and I've written a lot of performance stuff. So I think when you've got an audience there, you really have to engage them. You learn how to engage people. And I think you've got to do that in terms of writing a novel. You've got to get your audience and keep them with you, which, very nearly didn't with Lizzie, I have to say. She did go that thin line of being almost too much. So you've got to learn to, you want your audience there. So I think that element of being a performer is really valuable as a writer, engaging your reader. Let's see, what else? Being a performer. I'm not sure. I can't think if there's anything else.
I think you're flawed, Nola Marie, with the image of you being tutti frutti on roller skates.
I might even. Oh, look, I've got a photo. I'll grab a photo, and then you can see what we look like.
Please do share. Please do share.
I don't know if you can see. Hang on, the lights. Where am I?
A little bit. Yep, there we go.
So I'm the slightly taller one. Oh, hang on. I'm going the wrong way.
That way. Yeah, other way.
Oh, hang on. I'm going the wrong way.
There we go. That's it. That's front and center.
Yeah. Is that reflected? Can you see it? Yeah.
That outfit is something to talk about.
They were our new costumes. We had new costumes made because we worked a lot. We worked between Sydney and Melbourne, Queensland, ended going up to Taiwan for a gig up there. And so that was another good friend of mine. Basically, if you're my friend in the 90s, we created work in some way or other.
Oh, dear. Lots of people are loving that Miranda costume. Now, there is a question here from Nola, and it's about the cover of your book. So I'll pop both the question and the cover back up. Are they clothes on the cover?
No, I think they're bits of fabric. They're because she's a sort of a failed dress designer. So they've gone with the fabric because I had sort of ideas on what the colours and what I imagined the book would be, the cover would be, but Pam McMillan created that, and I just love it. I think it's fantastic. It's not what I expected at all, but I just sort of fell in love with it.
Excellent. All right, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me today, Susannah. And sorry about those technical difficulties in the middle there.
That's all right. I'm sorry. Where I'm sitting is I've been moving. I hope it hasn't been annoying people because I've been moving my screen a bit, but
it's okay. That's okay. And thank you to everybody who joined us and stuck with us there when we went through that. And I don't know if you can tell now. Now I've got sunshine streaming in and almost blinding me. So it's just apparently one of those days here on the northern beaches. Thank you again for joining me this week. In 2 weeks' time, I will have Carla Caruso, Alyssa Callan and Jackie Underdown on to chat about their new book that has come out. And I'll look forward to seeing them. In the meantime, everybody stay safe, stay at home if you can. And I think there's a few states now in lockdown, so let's hope we can get out of that soon.
Thank you so much.